So it's the end of May, and that means humidity season is about to start. Here in eastern Kentucky, it's hazy, hot, and humid all summer long, and I have to be careful that my things don't rust. So I've got some dusty guns in the back of the safe that I want to pull out, clean up and oil, and then put back where they came from. And I want to make some videos about these guns as I'm doing it. These won't be like the start of a series or a deep dive into anything. It's just kind of a one-off video where I pull out each gun, we reload some ammo for it, then I clean it up and put it back into the safe. Today is the first of those videos. The cartridge is the 3240 Winchester. It's one of these rimmed, tapered cases, and I think the most likely place you're going to run into this cartridge is in old Winchester and Marlin lever action rifles, I think. But apparently it has an excellent reputation for accuracy, and I think it's used sometimes in those Schutzen rifles. The rifle I'm going to be shooting today is a falling block, single shot falling block. This was put together by my grandfather. The action is from a company called Falling Block Works. It's their Model J action. The barrel is a Douglas light target taper. It was chambered, cut, crowned, and everything by Douglas. And I guess I sold kind of like a pre-fit, ready to go sort of deal because my grandfather installed the barrel. The stock is walnut. It is beautiful. And it was made by Reinhart Fajen. And it was bought as semi-finished, so I'm not really certain how much finish work was needed to the stock, but I think it was pretty extensive. And I think he did the checkering and everything by hand. I'm not 100% sure, because I don't know a lot of the story of this gun, and a lot of it makes sense whenever I look back through his notes. He only shot about 500 shots through the gun, and about 400 of them were the few years that I was gone in the military and just wasn't around. So I think this gun was just kind of a range plinker. He seemed to shoot almost exclusively cast bullets through it and didn't shoot it very often. So this gun was a long-term project. I found this old brochure in some of his stuff for the Falling Block Works lineup of stuff. Well, he bought the action in 1983. And then he bought the barrel in 1984, and then I guess the project got put to the side because he didn't buy the stock until 10 years later in 1993. And he didn't take the first shots with it until 1997. So 14 years from the time he bought the action until he took the first shot. I can definitely relate to that sort of project. Now, this company Falling Block Works is out of business as far as I know. Manufacturer of single-shot rifle actions and accessories. So they were in Michigan, and this action is labeled maybe Michigan, but I guess later they were in Fairfax, Virginia. So right here on the first page, they say, when we first started our company in 1971, our intent was to offer rugged actions primarily suited for buffalo-type rifles. Since then, however, the bench rest fraternity and varmint hunters have purchased more than their share of our actions and have built some very fine and accurate rifles from them. So I'll try and scan this and put a link to the PDF down in the description. If you come across one of these actions and need more info, this might be useful. So the Model J is the one I've got. Right here is its page. And you'll see that it is suitable for all rimmed cartridges from 22 Hornet through 4570. There are the dimensions right there, and there's a note. Looks like it was 20 bucks extra for the Schutzen lever, which he later decided not to go with. Got the standard lever that's here in the picture. Here are some of their lever options. And that top guy there is the Schutzen style lever. There are a couple pages here, sample of rifles, just to give you some inspiration on what can be built, I guess. There's a 30-30 and a 45-70. Here's a section that I found really fascinating about action strength. And I guess the second paragraph here is their summary. Our actions are among the strongest available on the market. They are at least safe for use with commercially available cartridges. Now further down it says, we proof test each action we sell before it leaves our factory. Each model J, L, and H is proofed using a 30-06 cartridge loaded with 49 grains of IMR 3031 powder and a 220 grain bullet. An article entitled Ballistic Breakthrough by L.E. Brownell and M.W. York, which appeared in the 3rd anniversary deluxe edition of Handloader's Digest, states that the above load produces an average pressure of 100,000 psi strain gauge results, which, according to the article, equates to a 67,400 psi crusher value. This load was used by the U.S. government to test their rifles over a period of years. Maybe I'll have to cook up one of those test loads and find a 30-06 to test it in So a lot of cool stuff there in this little brochure. Like I said, I'll try to leave a link down below in case you're interested in this sort of stuff. It's like 17 or 18 pages. So like I mentioned, he bought the Action in '83 and then bought a Douglas barrel in '84. The barrel's a 1 in 16 twist, which I think is what you normally see with 3240. Now the Reinhart Fajen stock, I wasn't familiar with them, but whenever I searched them, I found this story from Midway. So apparently Fajen and another company called Bishop made gun stocks in Warsaw, Missouri. And I guess in the early 90s, the wood gun stock business was pretty tough, and Fajen put themselves up for sale and was bought by Midway. And then later, Midway bought Bishop as well, built a new facility, upgraded some equipment, and then ended up exiting the business just a few years later in 1998. So my grandfather bought this one in 1993, so that would have been during the Midway years, I guess. So these two hunks of walnut were labeled as semi-fancy and semi-finished. So once he had the parts, 4 years later, he took his first shots in 1997. So those first shots were with the 170 grain Hornady flat point. And that's exactly what I want to load up today. Probably the same box of bullets. There were two other bullets he tried in it, this Spear 321 flat nose, and also some of this Hunter's Supply hard cast lead bullets. But looking through his notes and stuff, I would say 75% of the stuff he shot were his own cast bullets. I've got several molds that he had clearly bought specifically for this gun. Now with powder, with the jacketed bullets, he seemed to have some success with Reloader 7, and I think that's what we'll use today is Reloader 7, but also IMR 4227 and a couple of others. And then once he started shooting lead, he was playing around with quite a few other powders as well. The only real load data I can find, and what he seems to reference the most in his notes, is the Lee manual. They've got a section for 3240 Winchester and data from 125 grain bullets up to 170s. Got another section here with 170 jacketed data. So this last line here, Reloader 7, is what we're going off of today. I did see some 3240 data at the Hodgdon website, I believe it was. Yeah, Hodgdon has some data, but it's with heavier bullets from 196 grains to 204 grains. And I've got a Wasp flying around. Coming into Wasp season, along with humidity season. Now, as far as brass goes, some of it came from some of this John Wayne factory ammo. It's at 165 grain soft point, and I actually have 20 of these that haven't been fired. So the head stamps say Duke. Pretty cool stuff. It's made by Winchester. Yep, it's made by Winchester, which I think means this brass should be a lot like this brass. This is some Winchester 3240. Now apparently this stuff is extremely difficult to find and pretty much impossible to find. A batch comes out every few years and you have to buy it up while it's available. But apparently you can make brass from 3030 and also 32 Winchester Special. You can see this is Remington 32 Winchester Special brass that he formed to use in the 3240. It is a little bit short. Piece of this 3240 is about 2.125 and the 32 Special looks like it's about 2.060. So 65 thousandths short. And I think I remember seeing that 3030 leaves you the same way. It's a little bit short. So fortunately, I've got a pretty good little stockpile of brass for this gun. So I don't really need to worry too much about that sort of nonsense. So reloading dies, got a set of Lee dies, fulling sizing die, seating die, and shell holder. You know what? I haven't looked inside of the Lee package to see if they have much load data. Definitely not the full list of load data from the manual. Maybe these dies were bought earlier, but I guess that's all we get. So that's about it. I just want to load up like 25 of these. We'll use the 170 grain Hornady. We'll use Alliant Reloader 7. And we'll use Winchester WLR primers. Because looking through his notes, that's what he normally used for this. And actually some of the brass is already primed. Yeah, so this box, everything except these 4 rows are primed and ready to seat bullets, I believe. So we'll load up these 20 pieces that were fired. That way we get a taste of the resizing process. And then I'll add in 5 of these that were prepped long ago. So going through some of this brass and just wiping it down, I found a couple split necks. Have a look at that guy. And there's another one. That's even worse. So this has got me a little bit nervous about this batch of nickel-plated brass. But I ended up finding this little spot on one of the brass pieces as well. I think that's from gas leakage. I don't think that's just a dent. Yep, so, you know, no big deal. At least we caught it now. So I've got 10 pieces of the brass, fired brass, that will run through the whole process. And we'll use 15 of the pieces of the brass Winchester that's already primed and prepped. So let's grab a sizing die and get these taken care of. All right, just our standard Lee sizing die. There's our shell holder and our sizing die. All right, I've got it screwed down to where it's making good contact with the shell holder. And we'll see how this does. I'm going to use some Imperial sizing die wax. Tapered case like this, I don't expect a difficult sizing operation. Put a little bit around the mouth of the case to grease up the expander ball. Looks like we got it in there pretty good. I heard the primer drop out. And there we are. Try the next one. I think that's a mud dauber. They're pretty friendly. I don't think I've ever been stung by one. Here, just hang out up on the press for a while. There you go. Just stay there. Definitely keeping a close eye out for more neck splits, because when the sizing die squeezes that neck down and then the expander ball pulls up through, that's a lot of times when a split will show up. I guess they can show up anytime, really, right? You'll see them during sizing, like I just mentioned, and then during bullet seating, a lot of times, if a split isn't obvious at this point, you see the bullet and then it opens right up. And then obviously it can happen during firing. Just have to be on the lookout. It's got me wondering about that batch of the nickel-plated Duke brass, because I've only got like 16 pieces of it. Yeah, there's a total of 16 pieces, and I know he fired that full box of factory ammo, so 4 pieces are missing. I wonder if there were already some neck splits in the past. Might be able to look a little closer through the notes and find out. So I think these batches of brass are the only ones that have been used in this gun. That sucks. No big deal. I just pulled out the expander rod. I'm going to need some crescent wrenches. And of course it happened on the very last piece of brass we were sizing. It's okay, no big deal. Just got this guy loosened up a little bit. Should be able to lift the rod. There it is. Okay, I think I'm tight. There it goes. I kind of want to run this back through one more time, but I also don't want to add wear to the brass for no good reason. Whatever, we'll run it through one more time. We'll add a little bit of Imperial sizing die wax around the mouth of the case just to make sure we leave a good coating. On that expander ball. Okay, works for me. So I got the lube wiped off of our cases and I brushed out the primer pockets, so they're looking good. I was just looking to see if I was going to need to do any trimming. And all of these that we just resized are under the max of 2.130, but some of them are just a little bit under. This was the longest one. So I went to the other batch that's already primed, and man, some of these are really long. Where'd it go? There was one that was, there it is. There's a piece that's 2142, 12 thousandths over the max, but I put it in the gun and it chambers no problem. So I don't know, I'm just gonna roll with it. Trying to trim or do additional prep to cases that you've already primed, it always sucks. I'm always worried about getting brass shavings down in my primer and having problems. We're just gonna roll with it. So I need to, so let me grab 10 primers. I'm not even gonna bother filling up a tray for just 10 pieces. I'm just gonna grab one primer, put it in the tool, and prime it. Looking good. So I just got done saying how much I hate doing brass prep on brass that's been primed and realized I had forgotten to shine up and chamfer the case mouth. So doing that right now, trying to put the case upside down during the procedure so none of that brass dust falls down in there. Now during priming, these primer pockets did not feel particularly tight. Like, I think we're fine, but they went in awfully easy. Now, one thing I saw in my grandfather's notes, it was whenever he was using pistol powders with cast bullets for the most part, but he was trying to use pistol primers at one point, and he got gas leakage around the primer. So he had a big note in there to not try pistol primers again. But I did run into that. The little bit of research I did for this video, I ran into somebody else talking about using pistol primers and stuff like that. So for our 25.0 grain charge weights, I'm going to throw them with the Lee Deluxe Perfect Powder Measure. The die kit comes with a 1.9 cc scoop, so that should put us in the right ballpark. Over here on the adjuster, I've dialed in 1.9 cc, and I'll use that as a starting point. So I thought I was recording, but I wasn't. A couple quick adjustments on the powder measure. I think I'm at 1.87 cc instead of 1.9, and I'm right at 25 grains, so we're good to go. So I dialed up my calipers at about the overall length we're going to be shooting to see what the cantilever alignment would look like with this bullet. Looks like we're going to be a little bit short of the cantilever, which is fine. I was just kind of trying to get an idea of whether I was going to need to mess with crimp very much. And since we're not really going to be close to the cantilever, I'm not going to worry about it. We'll just run with no crimp. Okay, so I've got that long case that I showed earlier that's like 2.141 inches long. I want to use this one to set my die, because first step in our seating die setup is going to be to raise this up and then screw the die in until we feel it touch. And that's going to be the crimp ring touching the case mouth. There it is right there. And I'll back off about a half turn from that. And now we're ready to seat bullets. I've got the adjustment backed up really high. Maybe I'll go a little higher. Okay, we'll see how that goes. Felt nice and smooth. That's almost where we need to be. This set of caliper needs a set of batteries. It's freaking out every once in a while. Yeah, look at that. Looks perfect. Let's try this other set instead. So 2.740 was our target, and I'm at 2.738. Nailed it on the first try here. Let's seat another one. Nice and smooth. Exactly the same, 2.738. Good deal. We're just going to roll with that. Looks like the seating stem's leaving a little bit of a booger ring there, but whatever. It's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. Now, I did already fire this gun the other day. I can't remember if I talked about that in the beginning. I was rambling about so much random stuff. But yeah, when I was looking through the stuff for this gun, there were 20 rounds loaded, and I could see in my grandfather's notes, you know, what was loaded in them and all of that. So I figured it'd be easier to just go outside and shoot them real quick than to go through the trouble of unloading them. And I was just shooting at some steel plates. And that's really what kind of motivated me to make this video, because it was fun. It's a neat gun to shoot. Sits on bags really nice. The trigger feels good. Like, it's just a fun little gun to shoot. So decided to load a little bit for it, and then that kind of made me decide to do this for a couple guns. Now this cartridge is pretty obscure, but I've got some really popular cartridges coming with some of the other guns. So it'll be fun to just do some new stuff. Still waiting on that die to come back for the 6.5 PRC project. But if that comes back, I'll definitely stop and make a video about it. But in the meantime, a tour of the dusty corners of the gun safe. Sounds like fun. All right, here we go. Let's get out on the range. Let me try and give you a closer look at the action here. You can see the barrel labeled 3240 and then 16 for the 1 in 16 twist. So the lever just raises and drops the block. So to load the gun, we just drop the block, grab around and put it in there, and then we raise the block. You see how the block moved the case a little bit? So I didn't quite have it pushed in as far as I could. So it kind of hit a little bit. So, and what that makes me wonder about, and you can see, okay, so as I drop the block, you see it came out just a little bit. The extractor, yeah, there's the extractor down there. at about the 8 o'clock position or so. And I've seen people complain about extraction in these types of actions, and I saw in my grandfather's notes that he replaced this extractor. So I'm not sure if this is maybe an aftermarket extractor or a replacement extractor, but it seems like there's at least been some extractor issues with this gun along the way. So once your round is in and your block is up, then you just cock the hammer back and you're ready to go. Now, one warning I saw in the Falling Block Works manual was not to dry fire it. Dry firing will apparently damage the firing pin over time. So we'll put it down easy. And it does come down to like a half cock safe position whenever you let that hammer down. Okay, so the target is at 50 yards. According to his notes, that's the distance my grandfather usually shot, so I think that's what it zeroed for. The other day when I was shooting steel at about 50 yards, it was hitting every time. So hopefully we're close. I've got the lab radar chronograph fired up. We'll see if we can get some velocities. His old note said 1,740 feet per second for this. So let's see what happens. Looks like that first one hit a little bit low. The extractor seems to work okay on this gun, but I found out that last time I was shooting it that kind of giving it a little flick at the bottom of the block drop seemed to help get it popped out. That first velocity was 19 something. That first velocity was 1980. Let's shoot another one. So the second shot was 2,013 feet per second. First couple pieces of brass look good. So I'm not sure if he did any work on this trigger, but it feels great. Very light and very crisp. I keep forgetting to look really closely at the neck, just trying to spot any more splits. Nothing so far. You know, some of it might be because of the metal butt pad, but this gun's got a little bit of recoil. I think probably because it's a pretty light package, really. Okay, so those are the 10 shots from the brass that we resized. Looked like that average velocity is going to be right around 2,000, I bet. So average velocity was 1,999 feet per second. Standard deviation was 17. And it looks like it was stacking them right in there. I'm certainly happy with that. I'm going to let the gun cool down for a few minutes, then we'll move on to some of that brass that had already been prepped and primed. Okay, let's start a new group and see if these shoot the same. I expect they will. First couple velocities have been the same. That one was 2,001 feet per second. Last one was 1990 something. That is not too bad. So the average velocity on that second group was 2005 with a 15.5 standard deviation. So very similar to the first 10. I'm pretty happy with these groups. So that first one 0.67 inches and then the second one 1.04 inches. The gun is certainly capable of better than that. And in my grandfather's notes, he routinely did better than that. But for this sort of a test, just for fun, I'm more than happy with it. I tried to watch closely as I went along, didn't have any neck splits or anything weird going on with the brass. And just kind of doing the math, I bet this brass, if I went through and looked a little closer, it's got quite a few firings on it. Because, you know, the gun's got about 500 shots on it. And between this box and the other box, we're talking about less than 100 pieces of brass. So a lot of these might have, you know, 5, 6, 7 firings on them. And the neck splits might be expected. Especially for the nickel plated, maybe that had something to do with it. Not real sure. So, I mean, I guess that's where we'll leave it. I hope some of you enjoyed coming along, seeing something maybe a little different. This little gun's a lot of fun to shoot. So that's it for today. See you guys next time.